Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that fortune finally shifts toward Leslie when Peaches reappears, her presence fragile, but filled with secrets. Peaches has lived with truths that have festered for years, and perhaps because she senses her time is nearly gone, she makes a decision that shatters the delicate balance of the Dupree family. She tells Leslie what no one else dared to reveal. Vernon, the patriarch whose choices have shaped and scarred so many lives, is her father. For Leslie, this is not just information, it is vindication, a weapon, a coronation, all at once. The revelation lands in her chest like a spark igniting long-dormant embers. For so long, Leslie has existed in the shadows, dismissed, ridiculed, made to feel less than those around her. She has watched Anita and her children parade their lives, wearing their legacy like armor, while she endured humiliation after humiliation. But now she holds a truth that places her above them all. The shame of her past evaporates in the heat of a newfound pride. She is Vernon's daughter, and with that name comes entitlement, status, and most importantly, revenge. Peaches, frail and burdened, offers the truth with the softness of someone who has carried too much for too long. She likely believes the revelation will heal, will connect, will mend broken ties before it is too late. But she misjudges Leslie. Healing is not Leslie's goal. Vengeance is. The knowledge is a tool, and she intends to wield it with the precision of someone who has been waiting her entire life for the chance to strike back. Her first target is obvious: Anita. The history between them is steeped in disdain and conflict, Anita never missing an opportunity to put Leslie in her place, and Leslie never forgetting a single slight. To Leslie, Anita embodies everything she has been denied: the respect, the status, the recognition. And so she transforms her hatred into performance. She adorns herself in clothes meant to dazzle, meant to taunt. Eva, who watches Leslie preparing herself, cannot help but ask why the sudden extravagance. Leslie's answer is as sharp as it is revealing. She wants to savor Anita's fury. The thought of Anita's angry, helpless face brings her joy, a twisted delight that makes her laugh. Where others would see confrontation as painful, Leslie sees it as theater, a dark comedy in which she finally gets the starring role. The stage is set when the doorbell rings at Anita's home. Anita opens it to find Leslie standing there, exuding arrogance from every pore. Her smirk is not just confidence, it is challenge, it is war. Anita's eyes harden with contempt, but before she can shut the door, Leslie sweeps inside, ignoring the weight of her disdain. What follows is not polite conversation, but open combat, Leslie unleashing her barbs with precision. She doesn't merely insult Anita, she dismantles her with words, dragging up every past humiliation, every crack in the facade of perfection. Then the moment of impact arrives. Leslie locks eyes with Vernon and calls him father. The word echoes in the room like a gunshot. Vernon freezes, Anita recoils, the entire world shifts in a single breath. Anita spits out confusion. What the hell is happening? Her voice trembling between rage and disbelief. But Leslie is ready. She produces an old letter, worn and fragile, and throws it like a weapon into Anita's hands. The paper trembles as Anita reads, her eyes widening, her composure collapsing. Vernon, too, is stunned, his face caught between guilt and shock. The letter is undeniable. It is truth inked on yellowing pages, proof of the affair that produced Leslie, proof of the blood that binds them all. Anita feels something deep and corrosive rise within her. It is not just anger, it is betrayal, humiliation, a sensation that twists in her stomach until it burns her throat. The idea that this woman, this constant thorn in her side, is not just an intruder but family unsettles her in ways words cannot contain. Vernon, meanwhile, drowns in confusion. The daughter he never knew, the life he never claimed, now stands before him demanding acknowledgement. And worse, she has entangled herself with Nicole's family, her presence in their world already toxic. The guilt is overwhelming, the situation impossible. Leslie presses her advantage, mocking Anita's disbelief, daring her to deny what the letter proves. She weaponizes her status, enjoying each wince, each flicker of anguish on Anita's face. But the crescendo of cruelty shatters when Anita's palm lands hard against Leslie's cheek. The slap reverberates, cutting through the arrogance, leaving Leslie stunned. For an instant, the performance falters. Her cheeks sting, but it is her pride that bleeds. The slap is not just punishment, it is a reminder that power is not so easily claimed. Vernon, trapped between them, feels the walls close in. His instincts pull him in opposite directions toward his wife, the woman who has stood by him for decades, and toward his daughter, lost to him for so long, now demanding recognition. He cannot choose, but the absence of choice only deepens the fracture. Anita, trembling with fury, turns away from Leslie long enough to summon her children, to tell them the truth. The revelation ripples outward, touching every corner of her family with shock and anger. And yet beneath Anita's rage lies something else: guilt. She cannot deny the connection between Leslie and Barbara, her late friend whose memory now returns to haunt her. Barbara, gone but not forgotten, had always been a complicated figure, and the revelation of Leslie's bloodline ties Anita's grief to her humiliation. Each memory of Barbara now feels like a betrayal, and the weight of that knowledge presses heavy on her chest. For Leslie, however, the confrontation is not failure but fuel. Even the slap becomes part of her twisted performance. She tells herself that Anita's fury is proof of her power, that she has managed to penetrate the carefully constructed walls Anita built around her family. In her mind, humiliation is temporary, but her status as Vernon's daughter is eternal. The inheritance, the rights, the recognition, they cannot be denied. Whether Anita accepts it or not, Leslie is entitled, and she intends to claim every piece of it. Vernon retreats into silence, unable to reconcile his guilt with the chaos unraveling around him. His once commanding presence is reduced to confusion, a patriarch who can no longer control his own legacy. For the Dupree family, the revelation is more than scandal, it is an earthquake. Every bond, every assumption, every certainty has been torn apart. The truth cannot be hidden, and soon the whispers will spread. Anita knows this, which is why she braces herself for the judgment of society. She will have to face not only her own children, but also her friends, Tracy and Shara, whose opinions cut deep. The weight of their scrutiny will be unbearable, yet inevitable. The scene leaves the house in ruins, emotional rather than physical, but no less devastating. Leslie exits with her head held high, ignoring the sting on her cheek, while Anita clutches the old letter as if it were poison seeping into her skin. Vernon lingers in the doorway, hollow, torn between the life he built and the life he abandoned. The night closes in around them, heavy and suffocating, signaling that nothing will ever be the same again. But this is only the beginning. The revelation does not end with confrontation, it begins a war. Leslie, convinced of her right to claim what was denied, prepares to leverage every ounce of her newfound power. Anita, shattered but unbroken, begins to plot how she will defend her family's integrity against the chaos Leslie brings. Vernon sinks further into guilt, while the rest of the Dupree family stares into a future they never imagined. The past has clawed its way into the present, and now every choice will be made under its shadow. The tension inside the Dupree family home lingers long after Leslie storms away, and the silence left behind is heavier than the shouting that came before it. Anita, still gripping the letter, feels the words etched into her mind like scars she can never erase. She knows her children will look at her differently now, not because of anything she has done, but because of the truth she has been forced to confront. That truth is a parasite, ready to feed on every bond in her household. Her children demand answers. They do not understand how this could have been hidden, how Vernon's past could suddenly dictate their future. Their voices clash in confusion and anger, and Anita realizes she is no longer shielding them, but defending herself. Every explanation feels hollow. Every attempt at reason sounds like excuse. She senses them pulling away, not only from Vernon but from her as well, as if she had become complicit in keeping the lie alive. Anita's fury at Leslie begins to transform into something more dangerous: fear. Fear of losing her children's loyalty. Fear of losing the respect of those who have always stood by her. Vernon remains distant, a shadow drifting through the house. His eyes avoid Anita's, his words stumble, and his guilt consumes him. For a man who built his name on power and presence, his silence is deafening. He knows Leslie is his daughter, and every attempt to deny it would be futile. What haunts him most is not Leslie's arrival, but the realization that his past has finally caught up, demanding a price that may cost him both his marriage and his children. He once believed secrets could stay buried, but the letter proved otherwise. Now, even in moments of quiet, he hears Leslie's voice calling him father, a word he never thought he would hear from her, yet one he cannot forget. Leslie, meanwhile, basks in the chaos she has created. She replays the slap in her mind, twisting it into proof of her victory. To her, Anita's anger is not a setback, but validation, a sign that she has struck a nerve too deep to ignore. Dressed in her finest, she parades through town with a smirk, daring anyone to question her. She delights in the whispers she overhears, the half-hidden stares of those who have already caught wind of her connection to Vernon. It does not matter that many doubt her intentions or mock her arrogance. What matters is that they are talking about her. Leslie has spent years being invisible, and now she shines even if her glow is toxic. Anita knows she cannot hide from society. The gossip spreads faster than she can prepare, and soon Tracy and Shara are at her door. Their faces are not cruel but curious, and that is somehow worse. Anita braces for judgment, but their questions cut more deeply than accusations. Did she know? How will she handle Leslie's intrusion? What will this mean for the Dupree name? Anita wants to scream, to drive them out, but instead she forces composure, giving answers that are polite yet brittle. Inside, she feels herself cracking, because she knows that no matter how strong she appears, the judgment will continue behind their eyes, behind closed doors, in whispers she cannot control. Leslie escalates her attacks, showing up uninvited at places Anita once considered safe. A cafe where Anita met friends, a charity event she supported, even casual gatherings Leslie appears, all confidence and mockery. She positions herself close to Vernon in public, forcing the image of father and daughter onto anyone who might doubt it. The more Anita resists, the more Leslie pushes, until the line between family conflict and public scandal is erased. Vernon is torn apart by every display. At home, he tries to reassure Anita, but in public, he cannot push Leslie away. To do so would be to deny her existence, something he no longer has the strength to attempt. The contradiction drives Anita into a corner. Each time Vernon fails to defend her against Leslie, she feels another piece of her marriage slip away. The resentment builds, not only toward Leslie but toward Vernon himself. Anita's children begin to fracture under the weight of it all. Some of them rage openly at Leslie, calling her a fraud who is trying to destroy their family. Others, though, hesitate, wondering if blood truly demands acknowledgement, even if it comes in the most painful of ways. Their disagreements spill into shouting matches, dividing siblings who once stood united. Anita watches helplessly as her household turns into a battlefield, and the guilt she carries over Barbara deepens. Barbara's memory had been one of friendship, of trust, but now Anita wonders if she ever truly knew her. That doubt poisons every comforting memory, leaving only bitterness behind. Leslie, however, thrives on the division. Each argument between Anita's children feels like a victory. Each hesitation from Vernon is proof of her power. She convinces herself that Anita's world is crumbling and that soon, the house, the reputation, even the inheritance will shift into her hands. What she does not realize is that arrogance has limits and society is not as forgiving as she imagines. Her behavior, once seen as bold, becomes viewed as vulgar, her provocations wearing thin even on those who initially sympathized with her. Tracy and Shara, once merely curious, begin to question Leslie's motives aloud. They notice how she seems less interested in reconciliation than in destruction. Their conversations with Anita shift in toneless judgment, more solidarity as they see how relentless Leslie's campaign has become. For Anita, their support is a fragile lifeline, a reminder that she is not entirely alone. Yet, she knows that no amount of friendship can fully shield her from the scrutiny of a community hungry for scandal. Vernon, lost in his own turmoil, makes one last attempt to bridge the chasm. He arranges a private meeting with Leslie, hoping to calm her, to explain himself, perhaps even to soften her bitterness. But Leslie does not want calm. She wants acknowledgement, validation, and, above all, victory over Anita. When Vernon tries to steer the conversation toward peace, she accuses him of choosing his wife over his daughter, of abandoning her once again. The confrontation leaves him shaken, realizing that no matter what he says, Leslie will not be satisfied. His guilt cannot fix her anger, and his silence cannot protect Anita. He is a man caught in a trap of his own making, unable to escape without betraying someone he loves. As the days pass, Anita feels the walls of her world tightening. The Dupree family is no longer a symbol of stability but of scandal, and every decision she makes seems to deepen the fracture. She begins to dream of Barbara, not as the friend she once was, but as a shadow, a reminder of betrayal and unfinished business. These dreams haunt her, leaving her restless, unable to find peace even in her sleep. Leslie, blinded by her obsession, cannot see the storm she has created turning against her. Her arrogance isolates her, her laughter ringing hollow as more and more people view her not as victorious, but as vindictive. Still, she presses forward, convinced that she has destiny on her side. The Dupree family stands on the brink, each member carrying anger, fear, or guilt like a weight they cannot release. The confrontation between Anita and Leslie is no longer about a single revelation. It has become a struggle for survival, for identity, for dignity in the face of ruin. The inheritance may belong to Leslie by right, but the heart of the family, the bonds that truly matter, are slipping further out of her reach. And as society continues to watch, whisper, and judge, Anita knows the hardest battles are still to come. Her dignity, her marriage, and her children's loyalty all hang in the balance, and whether she triumphs or falls will depend not only on her strength, but on whether the people around her choose to stand with her, let her fight alone. Under the weight of revelations, betrayals, and bruised pride, the Dupree household begins to stagger toward an ending none of them could have foreseen. The storm that Peaches unleashed by revealing Leslie's parentage has run its course through every heart and corner of the family, and now all that remains is the wreckage. Yet, even in wreckage, choices must be made, and the final confrontations come with a clarity that leaves no room for illusion. Anita stands at the edge of her sanity, clutching the fragments of dignity she has managed to preserve. The letter Leslie threw in her face continues to burn in her memory, but Anita realizes that she cannot spend the rest of her life consumed by shame and bitterness. The world is watching her, whispering, dissecting her every move, but she refuses to allow Leslie to define her. At last, she begins to reclaim her power, drawing strength not from denial, but from acceptance. She cannot change the past, but she can control her response. With Tracy and Shara by her side, she starts speaking openly about the scandal, disarming those who hoped to use gossip as a weapon. What once seemed like humiliation begins to look like resilience, and Anita, for all her scars, begins to shine with a defiance that Leslie never anticipated. Vernon, meanwhile, reaches the end of his rope. His silence, his guilt, and his divided loyalties have only deepened the fractures in his family. For weeks he has been paralyzed, but now he knows he must choose. In a moment that carries both sorrow and resolution, he tells Leslie the truth she never wanted to hear, that while she is his daughter, she cannot demand love through cruelty. He admits his mistakes, his failures as a father, but makes clear that his loyalty lies with Anita, the woman who has endured his flaws for decades. The words break Leslie, not because she expected tenderness, but because she believed her bloodline alone would bind him to her. To be acknowledged yet rejected cuts deeper than all of Anita's slaps and insults combined. Leslie's downfall is not loud but devastating. She lashes out one final time, spitting words meant to wound, parading her arrogance as though it can still protect her. But her audience is gone. Vernon is firm, Anita unshaken, and even society, once intoxicated by the scandal, has grown weary of her theatrics. What she believed to be power has slipped through her fingers, leaving her isolated and empty. The performance is over, and she is no longer the star but the spectacle. Anita's children, once divided, begin to mend their fractures in the wake of Leslie's collapse. They see their mother not as complicit in deception, but as a survivor of betrayal. Their anger softens into loyalty, their confusion into clarity. They choose Anita not out of obligation, but out of recognition of her strength. For the first time in weeks, Anita feels the warmth of unity returning to her home. It does not erase the pain, but it steadies her, allowing her to believe that the Dupree family can endure even this storm. Leslie's inheritance, the one advantage she clung to, becomes a bitter victory. Yes, by law she may claim what is hers from Barbara's legacy, but the money and status do not fill the void inside her. She holds the papers, the accounts, the proof of wealth, but when she looks around, she sees no allies, no family, no love. She has won the rights, but lost the war. The tragedy of Leslie is that she achieved everything she thought she wanted, yet nothing she truly needed. Vernon and Anita, though shaken, find themselves strangely closer in the aftermath. The truth has scorched them, but what remains is real, stripped of illusions. Vernon's apology does not erase the damage, but it allows Anita to see him not as an untouchable patriarch, but as a flawed man who finally admits his sins. For Anita, forgiveness is not immediate, but it becomes possible. They walk side by side into a future that is uncertain yet honest, a future where the ghosts of Barbara and Leslie's revelations will linger, but no longer dictate every moment. Tracy and Shara, who once came to Anita with judgment in their eyes, now stand firmly beside her. They admire how she has carried herself, not by silencing the scandal, but by confronting it. Their loyalty strengthens Anita's resolve to rebuild her place in society, not as a victim of Vernon's past, but as a woman who faced ruin and refused to bow. The whispers in the community begin to change tone, shifting from ridicule to respect. And Leslie, left to her own devices, becomes a cautionary tale. The town remembers her not as Vernon's daughter, not as the woman who exposed a scandal, but as someone who turned bitterness into obsession and destroyed herself in the process. She remains visible but hollow, a figure who reminds everyone of what arrogance without compassion leads to. The Dupree family, scarred but intact, carries forward. They are no longer the polished image they once presented to the world. They are raw, fractured, and human. Yet in their survival lies a strange form of victory. They faced betrayal, humiliation, and the collapse of their image, and they emerged changed but not broken. Anita, once consumed by fear of judgment, now stands as proof that dignity is not about avoiding scandal, but about enduring it with strength. In the quiet that follows, the house feels different. The echoes of shouting have faded, replaced by cautious laughter, by conversations that no longer carry the weight of secrets. The Duprees will never forget the storm Leslie brought into their lives, but they will also never again underestimate their own resilience. And so the story ends not with triumph or total ruin, but with a truth deeper than either, that families are not defined by blood alone, but by the choices they make in the face of betrayal. For Anita, Vernon, and their children, the gates that once trapped them in lies have been torn open, and beyond them lies a future not free of struggle, but free of illusion.